What started your awakening healing journey?
Wow. What started my awakening healing journey? There were some really pivotal moments in that journey for me. What came to mind first is what I'm going to tell you about. But in reality, there were other moments before that that really were super powerful. Maybe I should even share one of the other ones because it was kind of miraculous. But I felt like I was born on that journey. Like as a kid, I knew already that thoughts create reality, and it was really weird to me that everyone didn't know that. I just thought it was common sense. And I remember calling my grandma when I was 7. My grandma was in Chicago. I was in Seattle. We're talking over 2,000 miles of distance. And I called her and I said, "Grandma, I need you to stop worrying about me." And she said, "Well, worrying is what parents do. Once you grow up and have your own kids, you'll understand." I said, "No, Grandma. Worrying is fear. And I can feel your fear. And I need you to stop worrying about me because you're creating negative things. I don't like it. I want you to stop creating negativity." And she didn't believe me. I didn't understand how she didn't know. Doesn't everyone know that? No, they don't. Well, so I figured out eventually that those things that I was born knowing, a lot of people have never even heard of or even thought was like ridiculous. Like, thoughts don't create reality. Of course they do. Of course they do. That's how reality is designed. That's like saying human beings don't breathe oxygen. Of course we do. That's how it works. So a lot of it was, of my spiritual awakening was already ingrained from before. But there was a really powerful time when I was 17 and something happened that I would say was the beginning of a completely new direction. I was very depressed. I was 17 years old. I just turned 17. I had spent my 16th year trying to prevent my mom from killing herself, which I often stayed up till 2 or 3 in the morning while she tried to slit her wrist and explain why she wanted to die, talking her out of doing it, and then get up and go to school and then go to work and then come back home and do it again. And it was exhausting and it was very depressing for me to see my mom want to leave. I mean, I misinterpreted it, I should say, into meaning that she didn't love me. So of course I felt sad and hurt. And the reality is I probably absorbed a lot of her pain that she wanted to escape from, which is why she felt that way at that time. No, she didn't kill herself, just in case you're wondering. She's still alive now at this time of filming. But I was pretty depressed because for years before that, literally from the age of 8, I endured my parents becoming horrible cocaine addicts and the freebasing, which is very similar to crack smoking. They did every day, all the time. They screamed and yelled at each other, at me. That was even before they became crackheads. And I went through starvation, being cold. I mean, I literally grew up in hell. And I wanted more than anything to help my parents stop doing drugs. I wanted to get them off drugs. And when I was 14, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I said, once I'm 16 and I have a driver's license, I'm out of here. But when I turned 16, that was when my mom was suicidal. And my dad was totally off the deep end. And I said, if I leave, they're going to die. And I didn't want my parents to die. So I stayed and fought as hard as I could. And after a whole year of trying, I'd been trying my whole childhood, trying so hard to get them to be healed from their drug addiction, I just finally reached a point where I just couldn't take it anymore. I just felt like giving up. I was so downtrodden. I couldn't smile no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't even push my mouth up. That's how depressed I was. And I didn't even go to high school. I didn't go to junior year. I was a really, really good student and smart kid. And I should have had straight A's if not for the freaking insanity I was involved in. The fact that I was able to get good grades and be student of the year in middle school and play sports, I did all that on my own. I was born with such a gift. I am so fortunate to be given the mind and brain that I was given. So I was able to survive all that stuff. But boy, at that point, it had been a long, weary, hellacious journey. I just couldn't take anymore. So I just stayed home and slept all day and played video games all night. It was awful. I felt so terrible. And I didn't talk to anyone. I had so many friends. I'm sure when they called, I didn't even know because I was asleep. And so I had this dream one day I guess it was during the day, right? I don't even remember. But I had this dream, and it was extremely powerful. Do you want to hear it? What happened? Okay, I'll tell you. So in the dream, I'm driving in my dad's Acura Integra, except it's before it had been in any accidents, so it's perfect and brand new. And I'm driving on this road that has no lines. It's just a dark gray paved road that goes on forever. And on the left side, there are these green trees with points on them that are perfect. They're like evergreen trees. And they go on forever down, down, down to the left. And up to the right is a grass hill that is maybe at a perfect 45-degree angle. And the grass is perfectly cut. There's no imperfections, and it goes on forever. Next to me is my dog, who is my best friend, Stevie, who had perfect ears, except in real life, one of her ears was kind of bent because she had a really bad bee sting. But in my dream, she was perfect, like 3 years old, and she was sitting in the car looking at me with such excitement and enthusiasm for life. And we drove for a little while, and then there was this white pathway made of gravel that went up the grass into forever. I got out of the car, and Stevie looked at me, and she had this look of like being my cheerleader. Go, Arnoux! So I started running up the pathway. And I kept, as I ran, I found myself at the beginning. So I ran up the pathway, going up to heaven, and I found myself at the beginning. And I ran, and I was at the beginning. So then I walked up the pathway, and then I was at the beginning. And then I walked up the pathway, and I was at the beginning. And then I crawled up the pathway because I was getting so tired. And then I was at the beginning, and I just couldn't go anymore, and I just stopped. I just got exhausted from the journey of evolving and trying to climb to heaven on earth. And this door opened out of the grass, out of the hill, with this very sexy, hot babe. And she did this. So I went inside, and it was all black until I got inside, and I was at this party. And there was all sorts of debauchery going on. Smoking and drinking and whatever. And no judging. This is just what happened. And someone pointed at me, a couple guys, and this one guy in the middle pointed at me and said, "Oh, look, that's the guy that likes my mom." And I was wearing some plain gray sweatshirt, and I became very embarrassed. Of course, it wasn't true. It was just a dream. But nevertheless, I became embarrassed, and my embarrassment was like steam, and it blew my sweatshirt up. So I took it off, and there were 13 steps going down to hell on earth. There's no such thing as like hell with Satan and all that. That's never been true. That was made up on purpose so that people wouldn't act terrible. You study the history and you'll find out. It's about time that we moved on from that. Like that might have been useful 2000 or 1600 or whatever it was, 1578 years ago that they decided to create that. But it's never actually been the truth. There's no such thing as fire and brimstone and hell like that. Sorry to break it to you. But there is hell on earth. And that is what people intuitively and instinctively know to be true. So I took the sweater off, that's just a sidebar, in the dream, and I put it on the third step, which symbolized where I was. And I woke up, and I knew everything about what the dream meant. The fact that it was so clear, so crystal clear, more clear than my vision ever could be, helped me and solidified for me that this was God. That's what I called it, the Great Spirit, the universe, the Great Divine talking to me. And I learned many things. First of all, I learned that the purpose of life is to continue the climb towards heaven on earth until you achieve it. It's evolution. And that I was in a very dark place at that moment. And I needed to come out of there and get back climbing upwards. I also learned that it's not just that I can pray and talk to God. God can talk to me. That changed everything. Because from that moment on, all day, every day, I was asking for, I called it God. You can call it whatever you want. I was asking the universe, I was asking God to talk to me and tell me what to do and where to go. Show me the guidance. Where do I go now? What do I do now? And I was getting the guidance every day. I just lived, but I was always listening for, looking for, feeling for the divine guidance. And miracles showed up all the time. Little things. I just get this feeling, go in this parking lot. And I drive in there, and there'd be someone who was stuck and stranded and they couldn't get their car to start, needing a jump, and no one would help them. And I'd drive up to them and say, do you need help? Yeah. And I would jump their car, and God wanted me to go help that lady. One time, a little voice whispered, go to this place. It was like the job office on campus. I didn't need to go there, but I heard the voice, so I went there. And I sat there thinking, what the heck am I doing here? And then this friend of mine came in, and I never saw her that way before. She was so beautiful, and I realized I should date her. I had no idea that she and I should go out. And it was the universe, God's way of helping me, guiding me. And I never lived that way until that dream. And I've never stopped living that way since then. Every single morning, I wake up and ask, what should I do today? And after achieving enough of my dreams, I literally wake up and just do what I'm guided to do all day, every day. I'm not beholden to any, 40-hour-a-week job or anything like that. I just get to follow the divine intuition all the time. That's how I live my life. And all these things that I teach, I have 25 courses, and I teach things that have never been invented in human history. I'm the creator of all this information. This is also part of it, because I keep asking God for guidance. So I wanted to know, how do you get rid of these negative programs that keep replaying? How do you get rid of negative emotions permanently? I asked the world said there is no way. I went to seminars, I read books, I listened to tapes and CDs and courses, and they all said there is no way. So I asked God, how do you do it? And a piece of information comes, another piece of information comes, another book comes, another course comes, and pieces keep getting fit together until I finally figured out the whole puzzle. I saw the full picture of how to erase negative emotions permanently. I did the same thing with the body. I can teach people about the body just as well as I can teach them about the mind. If I didn't have that dream, and if I didn't have the constant divine guidance, I wouldn't have all these courses. Yeah, I have my natural talent, and I've literally spent tens, and I should say now hundreds of thousands of dollars on getting educated and taking programs and reading books. And I worked really, really hard to learn all this and then develop it so I could teach it in the way that I do. But still, that was the beginning of my personal spiritual awakening. And it's only expanded and gotten better and better and better from there. In fact, this August, for the first time ever, I'm going to teach a new course called the Enlightenment course. And you can take it too once you've gone through a bunch of my other beginner and intermediate and the other advanced courses. So maybe one day I'll see you there since you're asking this question. My name's Arnoux, so now you know Arnoux. And hopefully you'll subscribe to my channel and we can hang out some more. Thanks.